Chinese Communist Party's influence once again at the front door of American government. Linda Sun, former chief of staff to Governor Kathy Hochul in New York, and a longtime aide to former Governor Andrew Cuomo, was arrested this week and charged with acting as a foreign agent on behalf of the Chinese government. Her husband, Chris Hu, also arrested. Sun accused of using her position to push Beijing's agenda in New York, including blocking Taiwan representatives from getting meetings with New York officials, sending unauthorized letters to invite Chinese officials for a U.S. visit, allowing Beijing to obtain visas in exchange for millions of dollars in gifts. Governor Hochul spoke out about the charges yesterday. Watch.
I was just on the phone at the request of Secretary Blinken, our Secretary of State, speaking with a high-ranking State Department official, and I had conveyed my desire to have the Consul General from the People's Republic of China in the New York mission expelled, that these actions taken by Linda Sun were an absolute betrayal of the trust of two administrations in state government, lying and misleading to these administrations, breaking our ethics rules, and even forging my signature on documents. I am not aware of statements that were altered while I was governor on behalf of my administration. And her access to information was fairly limited, and we have to always have our guard up about those foreign agents who are looking to infiltrate any level of government.
Oh, she's worked there for 15 years. She's just figuring this out now. Joining us now is Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow, author of The Coming Collapse of China and China is Going to War. Gordon, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. How does this happen? I mean, I know the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated this country to such an extent to have something like this, but for 15 years this goes on, and now she's telling us how bad it is?
Well, the Democratic Party in New York looks at Chinese Americans as a rich source of votes. But Chinese Americans, especially in New York City, have these troubling links to the Communist Party's United Front Work Department, which is the part of the party that subverts foreign government. So Linda Sun's incident was certainly going to happen. There are probably more Linda Suns in the New York government. We're going to see more incidents like this. This is just what happens when you have these linkages.
But, I mean, it just seems to me that it happens more with Democrats than Republicans. And I want to understand why the CCP is so infiltrated within the Democrat Party, because it's not just New York. Look at San Francisco, okay? Look at what happened in Texas, that Mike Pompeo had to shut down the embassy there in Texas because of all of the surveillance by the CCP and the sharing of information, that he indicted the professor from Harvard, right? The same thing. And then, of course, that was part of the China Initiative, but Joe Biden canceled the China Initiative.
Yeah. When you see San Francisco, there are Chinese flags flying over Chinatown. It's the same thing in Chinatown in this city, in New York. And the Democratic Party knows about it. You have Chuck Schumer regularly appearing with the United Front Work Department organizations. It's no accident that China's police station, the first one, was in New York City. But you have them all throughout the U.S., including, by the way, Tim Walz's Minnesota. So, yes, this is a disturbing connection. But also the Republicans have a China problem as well. It's a different China problem.
What's their problem?
Their problem is that they have ideologies which really do support the Communist Party. Because you have Patrick McHenry, the North Carolina Republican, he has single-handedly blocked almost every proposal in Congress and out of the administration to sever China's ties to Wall Street.
Yeah, you're right.
One guy, one conservative.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one.
I don't know that conservative, quote unquote.
Well, whatever he is, he's a Republican. Is what I would say to that. And it's a Republican problem. Yeah. So it's a bipartisan issue for the Americans. And
there's all this propaganda as well. China has been pushing divisive political messages on things like TikTok, posing as American voters, reportedly even soldiers on both X and TikTok. The long-running scheme is known as spamouflage. It includes accounts posting about hot topic issues, criticizing both Vice President Harris and former President Trump. It comes as TikTok announces an expansion of its How to Vote section, Gordon. It says that it's working to improve information about the upcoming presidential election. The app has increasingly become a news source for young Americans, despite being owned by Chinese company ByteDance. The platform will expand its landing page on how elections work and increasing media literacy, as well as implementing stronger security for politicians' accounts. I've said for a long time that China follows our political debates and they pile on with lots of propaganda. We're seeing a lot of that going into the election, aren't we?
Yes. what we're seeing this year is different than 2020, but this year I think they've become more effective. This year their operations are smaller, which means they're harder to detect, which means that they're harder to find. And clearly in 2020, the operations were massive. So, for instance, in June of 2020, Twitter took down 174,000 fake Chinese accounts. This operation, which in this year is much smaller, just a number, about a dozen accounts, but they're more effective this year. So China has figured out how to affect our elections. And by the way, they are now on Biden's side, because we see this from TikTok videos, because the trend of videos on TikTok are more pro-Biden than they are pro-Trump.
Oh, definitely.
And that's China using its curation algorithm to sort of amplify the Biden messages.
Well, as soon as Kamala was selected, as opposed to being elected, there was propaganda on TikTok saying how great she is. So it's clear to me that the Tim Walz Kamala Harris ticket is China's quote-unquote guy. Yeah. But I want to get your take on China Week, because Speaker Mike Johnson is going to create a whole week at the end of the month for China Week that everybody can bring up whatever bills they want regarding China. I don't see anything in terms of potentially removing the investor funding of the CCP with all these Chinese stocks traded on the U.S. exchanges. Is that not part of China Week?
Yeah, it's Patrick McHenry, who is influential. But, you know, this is a problem throughout both parties. But it's very good of Speaker Johnson to highlight China, because there's so much that needs to be done. We need to sever those links with the Chinese regime, because many Americans have incentives now to betray our country.
Tricia, real quick.
Going back to your point, Maria, about the propaganda that's being promoted, Linda's son, the former aide, was a DEI agent. Why is China so focused on DEI? I mean, it's clear that this is a goal to divide our country and to separate us, but why do you think that's such an important factor?
For the Communist Party, they want to take down the United States. In other words, destroy our democracy. And the way they think they can do that is to divide the American people. And DEI is one way to do it. Communist Party is very racist. They got this whole notion of Han nationalism, that the Chinese are the world's superior race. So they are using race to divide our country, because they know that it works.
Yeah.
Because it is very much a part of the Democratic Party platform. And they see that it's an important way to get Americans to argue among themselves.
Yeah, and they want to knock down the nuclear family.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, destroy the family.
Yeah,
that's what Mao Zedong did when he formed the People's Republic. He destroyed the family so it could not be a competition against the state.
Right. Gordon, great to have you as always. Thanks very much for your insights. Gordon